Okay, so we have PlayStation versus Steam Deck, or I guess consoles versus Steam machines, or Steam machine at Steam Deck. I'm gonna go get that. Here you go.
Okay. Sorry.
All right.
After I posted a video about the PS5's win over the Xbox, a lot of folks started commenting that this isn't the end, and Sony's monopoly won't happen since Valve has already announced their so-called home console, even though it's basically a mini PC, the Steam machine. And now there's some insider info from a pretty credible source, Jason Schreier, that Sony has shifted their strategy on exclusives without releasing them on PC.
What do you think is the future? I don't think a monopoly would happen because things are changing. Are you aware of how things are changing?
Price-wise or how we play video games?
So like the big dynamic that's happening is Sony is still fighting on the consoles, the idea of selling a really easy to use gaming software or hardware with its own software, like the PlayStation Store and all that stuff. Just how we have the PS5s. They're still wanting to do that. Xbox, even though they are launching another Xbox consoles, they're pushing more for that whole play streaming, like watch movies streaming like Netflix, rather than like get the movie in a DVD and playing it in your DVD. I used to back in the day, and then you have the disc, and you would watch it at your house. They want it more to be like you pay for that subscription, and you stream that video game on your TV rather than like you buying an Xbox to play the games. You just pay kind of like Netflix to play games. It's gonna be like it's already a thing, but that's what they're pushing for. While Sony still wants hardware, the money goes directly to Sony, and then now Steam is bringing a console-like box, kind of like the idea of what the PlayStation is and what the old Xbox were, but you still have console. I mean, PC PC goods. The idea that you can do all of these things, like everything that we're streaming now, is on the Steam Deck because it's a console, but I can just switch it to become a computer.
Right.
But it's designed for gaming. The big thing is Xbox is going streaming. PlayStation is still fighting for the way it's been fighting. They own a lot of companies that make games, and when they make those games, they're only for the PlayStation, unless Sony themselves says otherwise. But they're trying to lock it. Like if you want to play, let's say they launch The Last of Us 3, chances are you can only play The Last of Us 3 on the PlayStation, not on PC, not on Xbox, right? So that's their strategy. Xbox wants all the games to be available in their subscription, and that's their strategy. And then my favorite strategy, which is the Steam machines, which is you got Steam, and as long as you can have that in some type of computer, you can play Steam in any device. But they're selling it packaged with the Steam machine, kind of like the Steam Deck, that is like meant to work really seamlessly with Steam and all of your libraries and all that. So that's basically where we're at right now. And honestly, I don't think a monopoly is gonna happen, but I hope Steam wins. I hope Steam with the Steam machine it's an outstanding success. But there's a lot of things we don't know because we don't know when it's coming out and we don't know the price. And that's usually the price is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And
But we are still a fan of PlayStation. I
I'm
feel
not.
I am.
I want to
I
say
don't have no harsh feelings when it comes to the PlayStation. I love the Steam.
your Steam,
My Steam Deck.
Yeah, your Steam Deck is over here. So she has a good amount of experience on the PS4 Pro, PS5 Slim, and
Steam Deck.
the Steam Deck. This is a LCD version. This one's hers. So that's about as much experience. She did have a PC that we got, it wasn't designed for gaming. It's kind of weak. This thing performs much better than that PC, and that PC was around $800. This I got it for like
It was on sale for
400 because it was on
Yeah.
the refurbished, so it took a little bit off. This was back before AI drove all the computer parts, especially RAM, to like hell. So it was right now is an excellent deal. Back then it was still a good deal. So we really got lucky. I got her that.
I would prefer the Steam Deck over the actual PC stuff because one, it's small, and that's why I'm like, oh, if they do the Steam machine and stuff, I was like, okay, that's gonna be even smaller,
And it's
which is
stronger.
yeah, and
It's stronger.
stronger
Yeah.
than buying a whole PC, rebuilding it, and putting more money into it. Now that's kind of where I'm like, oof, how much is this Steam machine gonna be? And that's where we're like, okay, let's just put money on the side just to be safe, and we put
Could be pricey.
like about 2,000 just to be safe because but honestly I prefer the Steam machine than carry a big box in our room, and it just makes it more pretty, more organized, I think. And I just don't like our PCs. Like I would prefer the Steam Deck over any PCs just because the way it runs, it does what a PC does for me at least. Um, but it does also depend on what kind of game you play because the graphics might be a little bit like oof. But we haven't had trouble.
The graphic is not usually the problem. The
Yeah.
Steam Deck is surprisingly very good. The problem is you start to feel kind of lonely without being able to play some of the anti-cheat games like Battlefield 6.
Yeah, that is something where I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's when we rely on our PlayStation. That's why I'm like, oh, I give props from when it comes to PlayStation on that, but I do wish that they would have it on the Steam Deck. And then I guess that would limit like how many, electronics we have just to play specific games.
Yep.
I mean, we got our PC just
That's
to play
true.
Sons of the Forest.
That's true. I don't know if when you get older, you kind of want to limit the devices you have, or you're okay adding more devices on yourself for gaming. That's interesting.
Quite likely this is a reaction to the announcement of that mini PC from Valve, because even without a revealed price, it's already better than the PS5 in almost every way, except maybe for game optimization.
I don't know what he means by already better than a PS5. My understanding was that the Steam machine was about as good as the PS5 in its performance and graphics and frames. If it's already better than a PS5, it does bring a lot of value. Because some of the critiques I heard was the next PS6 and the next Xbox are going to be wildly stronger than the Steam machine. So
yeah, I was gonna say price range, but I feel like maybe we should.
No, I think price is a big deal.
Yeah, you could probably say that for like another video because that price is when it comes to changing prices is gonna be totally different for everything.
Which you'll still have to tweak manually like on any PC, but hey, it comes with free online, a bigger library of games, and way more freedom, like being able to install mods and voice packs.
I think that's a big thing.
Wait, I'm sorry. But the game that we literally haven't finished. But it's nice, but it's just
that's a nice problem to have. But anyway, now something he just said, like, oh, I need errors on this thing.
Without a revealed price, it's already better than the PS5 in almost every way, except maybe for game optimization, which you'll still have to tweak manually like on any PC, but hey, it comes with free online, a bigger library of games.
That optimization, you know what they're talking about right there?
Not necessarily.
So you know how like when we play in the PlayStation 5, we really don't do much of anything in settings to get the image to look good on the TV, right? But when we play in the Steam Deck, sometimes you see that I have to mess with a couple things and the image comes wide or stuff like that. That's what it's talking about.
Okay.
In one sense, this isn't necessarily a bad thing because the problem is you got to learn how to do that stuff when trouble happens, if the screen looks blurry or if it looks stretched and stuff like that. That's the PC hassle. But at the same time, that's also the PC gift. And it's the problem that with more freedom comes more responsibility. And with consoles, you have less freedom. You don't on most games, you don't have a way of changing the frames per second between, like for example, on the PS5 right now, it's between 60 frames or 120 frames. You don't really have an option to do that for most games. On the Steam Deck or any PC, you can generally play with that a lot. You can say, let's say a game like For Honor, I'm gonna prioritize the highest frame rate I can get over the quality of graphics, because that game is so vital about being able to see those attacks in fast speed and be able to parry and be able to have a good
I
experience.
agree.
But in games like let's say The Forest or Sons of the Forest, for example, I don't need that many frames. I would that game does such a good job on trying to make the world look real and alive that I kind of want the beauty to stand out more than how competitive pictures come.
Yeah.
Um, I can mess with that stuff on the Steam Deck, and on that's something I can't do on the PS5, which I get annoyed with. Because you're pretty much in the hopes that developers choose to optimize those type of settings and introduce them on the PlayStation for you to take care of them. Luckily enough, the games that I care about, For Honor, Insurgency Sandstorm, and Battlefield 6, have options for you to prioritize frame rate. But if they didn't, that could really kill my experience, because I don't want low frame rate on competitive games.
Yeah.
And that's it's more work, but because the freedom of being able to do that's actually a really good thing, you want that. For anybody who's a console gamer, you want that freedom. That's actually a pro. It's not a negative. The way this kind of makes it look like, because you do have to hassle, but it's if you care about your gaming experience, it's what you want. And it's not like Nintendo Switch where some games are playing at 30 frames and it can play 60 frames. And if you want to put the 60 frames, it's just to pay additional to play the 60 frames. Steam doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So
And
keep
I
that in
hope it
mind.
stays that way
It's
forever.
like the best of both worlds. And then on top of that, you'll be surprised how many games are already set up to be optimized to play at launch on the Steam Deck. There's a lot of games that you don't actually have to tweak anything for. It will run just fine.
Games and way more freedom, like being able to install mods and voice packs. Plus, it's just a PC, even if it runs on Linux, so the PS5 definitely needs to be on alert. But will this be a blow to Sony? We're about to find out. So today, let's talk about what the Steam Machine really is, and why it won't be a problem for PlayStation. Let's go. Let's dive into Steam Machine, because not
I feel like it is a problem. I want to get out of the PlayStation ecosystem, and not that there's much of an ecosystem, but I want to get out of PlayStation hands and go to the freedom of PC. So that's an interesting thing to hear.
everyone knows what it is. Over 10 years ago, the company launched its operating system, Steam OS, which was supposed to free gamers from the grip of Microsoft Windows. I wish I could say it succeeded, but it was a catastrophic failure. More than half of the games just didn't work on Steam OS, which was based
It ultimately succeeded.
Yeah.
It took a lot of years, and Steam, they're a great team, and they made it work. It did succeed in my eyes. The only next hurdle is anti-cheat games, but it does just fine. Sometimes it does better than Windows.
on Linux. And back then, no one was developing games for it. Not that anyone's doing that now, but this was the trigger. And even though we didn't see it, the company was actively working with publishers to try to lure them over to their side. They were also working on their own operating system, developing Proton to run Windows games. But you already know that thanks to the success of the Steam Deck, the main thing is that Valve has long had its sights set on the home console market. And after the success of the Steam Deck, which really boosted game sales on Steam, at least that's how it felt for me, a logical move would be to try releasing SteamOS again for home gamers, becoming a direct competitor to consoles with hardware even similar to PS5, but with way more.
Now, a little background on this. I don't know if he's going to get to it. Gabe's plan was actually a really good plan. It didn't fall apart because his plan didn't work. It fell apart because there was delays, especially with that controller he wanted to launch that wasn't working properly. But there was delays, and it was coming in the holidays. And the difference between those, you saw the weird cube thing console, that was essentially their first Steam machine. But they didn't make those. They hired other computer companies to make those, and they were going to ship them and they were going to sell them and all that stuff. But it would have the Steam OS in there, and that's the idea, because Gabe's company is Steam. It's not computer parts. He couldn't launch it before the holidays, and those companies couldn't miss out on the holiday sales, so they launched those consoles anyway without the Steam the Steam OS, the Linux
Yeah.
OS, and instead had it launched for Windows, which was like the whole point why he made this whole thing happen is because he wants people to move away from Windows to Linux. Um, and that's why it failed. It didn't fail because it was bad products, because the machines didn't work well or anything. It failed because he couldn't get it to launch before the holidays, and the contractors of these other, I think it was Alienware, computer parts that were making them, they didn't want to miss out on all that money, so they launched it on Windows instead.
Freedom. Let's kick things off by saying that a lot of indie games
Kenny and what's her name? Yui, whatever.
Yuri.
Thickest.
Oh, you're on the second season.
Oh, about today on the 13th.
Okay, Mama. Hey, don't come over here. We're doing a podcast, okay?
All right, let's get back to
games never make it to consoles, they just hang out on Steam. The most notable example is My Summer Car, but there are tons of games like that. Plus, with the Steam machine, just like any PC, you don't have to pay for online play. And on top of that,
Damn right. Damn right. I'm so sick of this PlayStation Plus. I joined Sony in I know people love the PS2, but I love the PS3. And I joined Sony when I think was the best time to be a Sony customer. You didn't have to pay a single penny to play online. And those were in the times where they had Little Big Planet 1. And I think even, GTA 5 launched during that time. We have Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2. It was fine. And that's also when I first played Battlefield. That was the best gaming time, was the PS3. You did not have to pay to play online.
I remember when my mom got the PS3 for us and we did do the GTA, but we've always had all of them from the beginning. I feel like, to me, because I don't remember much and I just started gaming with the PlayStation 4 Pro, I thought they were all the same, but I do know that they did change that you do now have to have a subscription after
Yep.
a certain amount of time. But
Yep. And it sucked. It sucked when they did. When I heard the PS4 did, I was annoyed.
But I do like that even if you have a PlayStation, you can at least, have it like as your main account and have another one be on it. I
do like, the
yeah.
system account sharing thing.
Yes, I
I
like that.
appreciate that, but I don't want to be paying to play online. I do not want to be doing that. I'm tired of doing that. And if they are going to do that, it should not be as high as it is.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I might not have much of a problem if it was around $60 for the whole year, maybe $80 for the
I
whole year.
remember when it was 60 for
right?
some reason. And then
And
it
then
just
right now it's like
boosted.
180 or something. And
I don't even know.
I don't want to do that. No.
But right now, like, it is a little bit convenient for us having it.
Battlefield 6 is saving PlayStation right now, because if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be paying for it.
But they did. But right now it is convenient for us because our entire family use PlayStations, and there's
How's
we
that
have
convenient?
4
That means we have to buy
because-
more subscriptions.
Well, no, I mean we have 2. Oh no, because Kimberly has to have her own,
Right.
and then we have people that come over and bring
Almost
their own
basically 3.
PlayStations.
No, it's annoying. I don't want to be paying that much for each one of them. Because that's like, we have 4 in our household, which we can get away with 2, but we got brothers and friends.
We technically have 5, and we're about to have 6 for.
So like, that means if it's 6, that means 3 separate year-long subscriptions. No, I don't want to do that.
Please don't ask why we have 6. We just, when people come over, we always need extra.
you can install mods, fan-made voiceovers, which is super relevant right now, and even piracy is.
And to be fair, I don't have much experience with mods. But pretty much, if I were to mess with mods, I'm sure I would be somehow even more PC Steam machine team than what I already am.
An issue. So basically, we're getting an unlock for the PS5. Plus, you get a cool gamepad and all the freedom of a PC. I'm not stressing this too much since I'm not a Linux user, and I figure many will use the Steam machine as an alternative to consoles, not PCs. On the flip side, the fact that you're not
That sticks with
restricted is
me.
pretty awesome. You can learn Linux
As an alternative to consoles, not PCs. I agree with that.
But for me, especially with me, because I love the Steam Deck, and I love, when it comes to Steam games and stuff.
Wait, what did he say? Sorry, let me make sure I understood what he said. Right.
PS5. Plus, you get a cool gamepad and all the freedom of a PC. I'm not stressing this too much since I'm not a Linux user, and I figure many will use the Steam machine as an alternative to consoles, not
part.
PCs. On the flip side,
Yep.
the fact that you're not
Yeah, because I love using the remote controls. I cannot use a keyboard or mouse. Like I know that's, but I
There's a gap there.
prefer the remote controller.
Right, because there's a different type of gamers, and the amount of gamers I think is what makes this what will make the fight. The gamers like you who don't want to dive too deep into gaming, they just want to turn it on and let it work,
Yeah.
right? And the people like you who started on console are not going to be gaming with keyboard and mouse. They want it on the controller. And then there's the gamers like me who are not satisfied with console gaming because of those limits and those payment restrictions. And they want to do the things that we see all these other PC gamers do and how they stream and all the other things that with the mods and stuff. And we want that. And we're willing and it, like gamers like me, probably younger than me, are more competitive players overall. So they will look at the
I agree.
decision
Look at our son.
between, yeah, they will look at the decision between, oh, do I really want to play this first person shooter with a controller? Or am I going to use the keyboard and mouse that doesn't have stick drift, that is quick and precise how I want it? And if I get good at it, I'll be 4 or 5 times better than what I will be with a controller, assuming that there isn't crazy aim assist in that game, Call of Duty. But for more games, like it's obvious that you want the mouse control. It's just it is. But that's it. Like how many players are like me that want that change, and players are like you that find that annoying, and you don't want to go through that when you want to play a game.
Yeah.
restricted is pretty awesome. You can learn Linux, and for just browsing the internet, you won't even need to relearn anything. And that's not bad, because why buy both a PC and a console when you have, well, the Steam machine? Plus, I think you could set up dual boot like on the Steam Deck, so
Now he keeps saying Linux, but my understanding was you can also get Windows on the Steam machine, which is a big deal. Depending, and if it's any regular old Windows, it could play Battlefield 6 as well.
Well, just recently they did do a change. I don't know how old this video is, but I do remember we did see something where it did say that they was going to run Microsoft.
I think it was you can choose whatever one.
Mm.
Again, because Steam is not necessarily Linux. Steam is that Steam
Yeah.
software.
Right.
They just want you buying games from there. And again, the whole thing with Linux is Gabe wanted to fight the possibility of Microsoft choosing to get rid of Steam in Windows in a more practical sense with the Microsoft Store, and just only pushing his Windows games and contracts in there, and not advertise Steam in there, or locking it out completely, maybe.
I know
So
this
he
is like,
needed an alternative.
yeah, I know this is totally like off topic, but that's not off topic. But I do like that the refund processing is way better.
Much.
Customer service is so much better. You lost your password or something, it's so much better.
The Steam's customer service is so good. I bet if we were to go undercover, figure out how they do it, the company that she works for will pay us millions to introduce that type of infrastructure of dealing with customer service, that because they process things so quick, so cleanly, in ways that her company that where she works at, they struggle, and it's a pain, it's a mess, and they can't compete with it. And they don't have nowhere the amount of traffic and users that Steam does. So it's interesting. They got something well developed in how they
Yeah.
do that.
Steam OS stays for gaming, and you can run Windows for regular use. Yeah, for console users who just turn it on, launch a game, and go, this might feel different, but alternatives are always welcome. And honestly, a gaming PC at the price of consoles is definitely better than a regular console. But there's a huge catch, more like an elephant in the room. All this is happening while the price of
Wait, before he gets to that point, which I can guess where it's guessing at with the rising price of computer parts, that's a really big deal. I think that in the market, usually the hybrid of both worlds is the thing that sells the most. A quick example for this is I used to work for a third party company to help with Tempur-Pedic beds, which are like this really expensive, fancy beds. Not so fancy, but they're expensive. And their whole gimmick is that they have beds that they control with the remote and they like bend or whatever, and the fabric of the cushion, the mattress.
Yeah.
And they had introduced like this super well-designed mattress that is super comfy, absorbs the whatever, and that was like their biggest selling point. It was switched from spring beds to these beds, but those were not the beds that sold out the most. The beds that sold out the most were the hybrid beds, where they had a layer of springs and a layer of that cushioning. The simple fact is that I think people, the average customer, they want to be safe about taking the next step of improvement. In that case, they wanted to try the new type revolutionary beds, but they were nervous to fully commit and they didn't want to say goodbye to what they already knew. So the hybrid beds sold the most. And I think that's a really good thing to know because technically this is like a hybrid PC console, the Steam machine. So it's like you want to take the step into the world of PC, but you don't want to completely commit. You still want to stay with what's familiar. So they got this big picture mode software for Steam that kind of does that. It's kind of like that hybrid spring cushion bed in the terms of PC and console. So I think that's a really big thing to keep in mind just on human nature. They probably buy it if they choose to do more advertising. I think that's the biggest thing because most of the advertising is YouTube or just content creation, word of mouth. Like I'm not seeing any ads about the Steam machine in like and a source from that. So if there's kids and all they play is on their Nintendo Switch and stuff, and they're not really looking at the news of gaming and stuff, they might not know that this is happening. But this is the way to go, in my opinion.
The Steam machine remains a mystery. However, some smart folks online have pieced together all the components of the Steam machine, and it totals around $450, maybe $500 with shipping, marketing, and all that, which is still a pretty sweet price for a device that performs on par with the base PS5. And if you consider it'll stay relevant until about 2030, then a Steam machine at that price is a really good deal, because Valve can sell the console at cost, making their money from game sales in their store. But the reason Valve isn't revealing prices is probably because they don't even know how much production will cost. Many people don't even realize what kind of chaos we're on the brink of, not just in the gaming industry, but in the world. Not only is there an AI bubble inflating,
I don't know when this video came out. I want to check something real quick because it really sounds like he's not including AI prices.
This was 3 months ago.
Okay, I don't know how he wouldn't include this. No, that was this comment was.
Oh, I'm
When
sorry.
did the video come out? What did we tell?
Wait, can you go down? It looks like it can't. Wait, yeah, scroll a little bit up. It should say.
It should say.
Yeah, what? Can you scroll down? You see those 3 little lines right there at the far right? Oh, yep.
That's,
Oh, it does not.
doesn't show.
Surprisingly.
He's not talking about
bursts will be no joke for anyone, but the prices of one of the main resources for building any PC are skyrocketing at an incredible pace. For example, back in September, a 32GB RAM kit in dual channel cost $90. That was a pretty decent price compared to the current $250 for the exact same kit. In just 3 months, the price has doubled, and I'm sure that's
In 3 months, it doubled, and by the time it comes out, I feel like it's gonna double more.
as of now. This is like April 10th, 11th,
Okay.
April 11th, 2026. There was some news that could help lower this down a bit, not back to its normal price, but a bit. And I think it was Google saying that they could get the same results that they have with using like I think it was 30% less RAM, which could help the market a bit. But then again, that doesn't necessarily stop these investors too from being like, oh, then let's just keep spending the same amount and just build more AI data centers. So, but we'll see. And then also, who's to say that even if it does lower down the price, that the company selling the RAM will actually lower it and not just be like, well, people are used to paying this now. Why would we lower it?
Yeah, well,
Far
you have to
from
get
the
the
limit.
money's worth too.
Some might say we've seen this before with the mining boom and the skyrocketing prices of graphics cards. We had the semiconductor shortage at the start of the 9th gen consoles and the scarcity of the latest ones. Yet somehow, we pulled through. The thing is, this issue is on a much bigger scale since the memory shortage seems like it's here to stay for the next few years, and manufacturers aren't planning to address it. Turns out, only 3 companies in the world produce memory chips. These chips are used in everything from graphics cards to laptops, smartphones, PCs, and even the Steam machine. But the price surge isn't just because of that.
Yes, including consoles. They're basically computers. Okay. So whenever you see something affect the PC market, it is affecting the console market. It's whether or not Steam or, I mean, PlayStation or Xbox is going to absorb the damage or pass it on to you, but it's affecting them.
It's because all 3 of these companies have teamed up and announced they're cutting back on consumer memory production, which is exactly what goes into these gadgets, to free up resources for high-speed RAM and AI data centers. One company has even completely shifted its focus to this. And once this news hit, just check out this chart showing how prices spiked in just 1 month. Everyone started buying like crazy, and I'm not talking about retail. I'm talking about manufacturers of laptops, smartphones, PCs, consoles, and so on. It's going to be wild if all of this crashes along with the AI bubble. But that's not the point. The real issue is releasing the Steam machine in the middle of all this chaos. I honestly have no idea how Valve plans to manage it. Right now, if you just look at the hardware cost, it's $450 and all in, it's $800. To put that in perspective, that's about the same as a PS5 Pro with a disk drive, which has way more powerful hardware.
So 800 sounds more realistic for the Steam machine, but that's a lot of that is probably because Steam, when they announced their stuff, the controller, the Steam machine, and the VR, they said they're not going to sell it at a loss. So the Steam Deck probably cost them around like $700 or more to make, but they're selling it at like $500 or something like that, right? And that's because whatever money that they lose selling the actual Steam Deck, they're gonna get back based on all the games that I'm buying on Steam. And they probably got more than triple with out of me on that. But so like it works. They said they're not gonna do that with the Steam machine. I think they will do that. I think they will sell it at a little bit of a loss to keep the price competitive, because I'm sure they'll understand that they will get their money back and more so. I think at least something like that. Only reason why I'm not fully convinced that they will do that is because technically they probably don't want to do that and say they lose, say, $50 on each Steam machine they sell, and then somehow the price of those parts go even higher now, and now they're no longer losing 50, they're probably losing like 160 or something. But I think they're probably more than willing to sell it at a loss.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Some folks think Gabe knew about the upcoming crisis, or at least had a hunch, and prepped for it. This is hinted at by the fact that the Steam machines only have 8 gigs of RAM, which caused a huge uproar when announced. But
no, I don't. If he's saying, if what he's saying is true, then okay. But I don't think what he's saying is true. I think it was like a last minute decision to lower it down to the 8 gigs of RAM. But I don't know very much about that, because I thought it was coming out at like 16 and then he had to lower it to 8. But I could just be misinformed on that. It would make sense because making a switch like that would probably be difficult by that point, I'm guessing.
now, it actually seems like a pretty smart move, and maybe because of this, or maybe because they're selling the devices at a loss to make money on game sales, the price will be lower. It's all speculation, but a lot of people think the price will be around $699. Let's be real, that doesn't sting as much. especially since I still believe the Steam Machine is a solid
I think
device.
800.
Valve has learned from past mistakes, and the
I
Steam
hope
Deck is proof of
700.
that. With the release
I
of the
would say
stationary model, they
799.
clearly put in the
It's
work to
always
enhance the
That's
operating
800.
system and maybe
I know,
even
but
some
they
game
always
settings
give
with
you the
upscaling. But it's not
799.
all on Valve. There's still a lot riding on game developers. Optimizing games for consoles is just easier than for PCs due to similar hardware.
Nope.
On the
I mean, yeah, obviously that's true. But not if the Steam Machine comes out, because then it's basically a console. Meaning it's a lot easier to make the game run better on the PS5 since all PS5s have the same parts, basically speaking. The same thing is being said about the Steam Deck. All Steam Decks have the same parts. So the same thing will be said about the Steam Machine. All the Steam Machines will have basically the same parts. What he's getting at is PCs don't all have the same parts. My PC is much different, your PC and somebody else's PC. So it's hard to make the game run specifically well on each PC. So that's what he's talking about. But that is one of the biggest things why this is kind of like a hybrid console PC, is because a lot of the same parts, games, once they optimize it once a Steam Machine, it goes across the board. I don't think that's anything different. And then of course there's the use of AI to make up for that. That will get better.
flip side, if the Steam Machine gains popularity, it'll give developers extra motivation to optimize games for it, just like many are doing for the weaker Xbox Series S. And maybe Valve will lend a hand with that. Anyway, I'm excited about the Steam Machine, if only because it's going to be an interesting device, but it's not exactly the best timing for it. However, that's not the only reason it won't break Sony's.
I think it's a great timing for it. I think the reason why he's saying it's not a best timing for it is because of all these problems that are coming up. But in my eyes, it's the perfect timing for it, because this mess that's happening, that doesn't mean it's a bad time. That just means that that's just the fight that needs to be fought. But I think if Steam were to do this later, it could cause a problem with too many people already making a choice to stick with something like Xbox subscriptions. By then they're probably already too invested in their Xbox library and stuff, or let PlayStation be between PlayStation and Xbox or something. With them entering now, allows for customers to not get too invested in that next generation of gaming. So I think that they have to do it now, and and start their fight now rather than later. So, and this is simply a messy fight, but I don't think there would have been a better time for it to be getting involved.
Monopoly. Yeah, PS5, being a major player in electronics, is definitely stocked up on memory chips, and they've probably got long-term supply contracts to weather this chaos. But
Apparently not long enough, because they're already raising the prices.
if we look back at the PlayStation 5 launch, it was a total mess. Shortages, price hikes on consoles within the same generation, not many new titles while they focused on games as a service, and so on. And then the shift away from exclusives, which started dropping almost simultaneously, and some even at the same time on PC. That was a really odd move, since exclusives were what made the PlayStation so desirable and loved by many. And even with Xbox being better,
Gamers were always complaining. So they were getting annoyed at the time because PlayStation wouldn't share some of those games with Steam.
Hmm.
And then they got annoyed that PlayStation shared those games with Steam. And then now they're getting annoyed because PlayStation is no longer sharing the next games with Steam. So like no matter what you do, they're gonna complain.
Yeah.
Because The Last of Us 2, you can play it on Steam. We can play it on the Steam Deck if you want.
We already played them. We keep swapping them out. Like, where are we gonna play something?
in almost every way, people still didn't buy it. The reason is super simple. PlayStation fans already had a built-up
like
digital
Little
library
Nightmares.
with PS4. Switching platforms is like tossing away a bunch of great games. Sure, it's cool to have two consoles and pick what to play, but if you have to choose one platform, if you had a PlayStation last generation, there's a 90% chance you're sticking with PlayStation. Plus, if we trust insider Jason Schreier,
I think that's true in like reality, what actually happens. Like, well, you got the PS4, so it only makes sense that you're gonna get the PS5 and you're gonna stick with it, rather than like, oh, you have the PS4, so you're gonna switch to the Steam Machine next year, right? I think that's true. But I think the argument of, look at how many PS3 games don't work on the PS5,
Yeah.
right? You won't have that problem on the Steam machine. Like all the games I'm playing on the Steam Deck will be playable on the Steam machine just fine. And I think that's a really big deal.
Sony's doubling down on exclusives again, especially without releasing them on PC, at least not for single-player story games. So Ghost of Tsushima probably won't make it to PC. God of War 4 won't either. If you want to play these games, you'll need a PlayStation instead of a Steam machine. This isn't just about competition, it's about economics. It's kind of amusing how
That depends on how good those first player games are, because too many failed games. And I think they're almost shooting themselves in the foot because they just got rid of a company that was one of their best first player games developers. I think they were the ones that made The Last of Us, but they were for sure the ones that made Uncharted, which was a really good first player game. We never played those, but it's like The Last of Us on how good it is.
sequels don't really sell well to PC players, like Spider-Man 2 sold worse than the first one.
That's a weak point. That's a weak point because it's like saying an app made for Apple just doesn't run as good as in Android. The idea that Spider-Man didn't sell as good on the Steam, I'm sorry, yeah, on PC, doesn't mean that this doesn't work. The problem is that it came out first on PlayStation, so that's the first problem. If you want to play that game and you have a PlayStation, you're gonna buy it on the PlayStation because it will come out earlier on the PlayStation. And once you played it and then it comes out for a PC, are you gonna buy that game twice? No. Then there's the other thing. That game was optimized to run better on the PlayStation. So even if you didn't realize the game came out and now you want to play and it's out on both the console and PC, but you know that it runs better on the piece on the console, why not run it on the console? Right? Like, why go through the hassles of tweaking and stuff if it already runs better? So that is not a good way to measure that. People just don't like playing PlayStation games on PC. Not because people don't want to play those games on PC. It's just it runs better on the PlayStation. So why not play it on the PlayStation? And definitely why buy it twice?
Yeah.
Last of Us Part 2 did too, though you could blame that on it being pretty niche and some backlash from bloggers at launch. Even God of War, Sony's best-selling game on PC, couldn't outdo its sequel. Plus, porting costs money, and all this just to make a little extra cash, or maybe just break even, since the main revenue for the company still comes from selling games on their own platform. Otherwise, they're just
For the
shooting
reasons that I
themselves in the
said
foot. Players don't buy consoles because exclusives eventually hit PC. They also miss out on the cut from game sales by other studios. So the most sensible move is to keep exclusives on PS5. But it took the execs a whole 5 years to figure this out, and a little push from Valve. If Sony really goes back to its roots, then the Steam machine won't have any real competition. It's just a different device for a different audience.
No.
The ones who'll be in
It,
a bind.
it will be a huge competition. It will be a huge, even if PlayStation does do the smart thing and keep those games only on their PlayStation, it will still be a big fight because gamers don't like paying for subscriptions. Gamers like to have big libraries of games, and these are mainly the gamers with the money to spend on games. And gamers like freedom. They like modding. They like all of these other things that the PlayStation
And it sucks
just
playing
didn't.
with people on PC on there, and you're running on PlayStation because it's like it's just not a fair. It's not. I can't say it's
Not
a fair
No,
game.
that's right. Yeah, PC just it's
They're
more competitive.
overperformed. Yeah, they
Yeah.
they overperform wherever that we're playing, and I'm just like, dang. And we can tell like, that's a PC gamer. It's so crazy that we can tell
Yeah.
that. But other people are just like, no, you just
The
suck.
only thing I will give consoles beyond anything, it feels really, really good to be able to play a game and know, and that game is not cross gen, or not cross gen, cross platform. So meaning PlayStation can only play with PlayStation, or PlayStation and Xbox only, because you know that nobody is doing hard cheating in that game.
Yeah.
Nobody has direct aim mod. Nobody has like be able to see through walls. Nobody's playing like that, and the games that you play feel much better because of it. Even though it's not perfect, and they still have these things called chronuses and stuff, which what killed my experience in Battlefield 5 on its later years. Is
Yeah,
everybody
because
was
we
using that, and
loved it.
everybody's using the same guns, and those guns
Yeah.
and the recoil is just optimized because they got that crap plugged in there.
Yeah, I remember
But
it was
that's
so
still
fun.
it's much better to deal with that than dealing with like people flying across the map and then killing you or something like that. That's different.
Are you talking about COD?
Um,
You said
no,
flying.
no, because that's what those are the hacks the people do on PC.
Yeah.
They have like super speed and stuff like that.
That's insane.
We don't see that. Yeah, we don't see that very much because we've been mainly on PlayStation, and it's
Mhm.
only recent that it's been common for cross everything gameplay. And then now that that's happened though, more and more developers have made it harder to cheat, so it's harder to see it.
Yeah.
But that was normal. That was the thing, and that kills the game experience a lot.
Are Microsoft, who've already announced that in the next generation, their console will basically be a PC, if it even launches with those hardware prices. So what's the takeaway here? What should
That's a big deal. Yeah, I think the real fight might not be so much between Steam and PlayStation. It might be between Steam and Xbox, because Xbox just has more money, more money to be able to sell their consoles cheaper than the Steam machine, and eat the cost, and then because they want that subscription,
Right.
and then it's probably going to be a lot stronger than the Steam machine. So an average gamer, what are they going to choose? The cheaper, stronger thing, or the thing that they don't quite be able to see in the years? That means more freedom, more consumer friendly practices. Like you're not getting chipped every penny throughout the time that you're playing. They're not going to see that as much as they're going to immediately see, oh, this one's $500, this one's $800, this one can run like 130 frames, or no, probably like 150 frames or something. But what is it right now? It's like 120 is the average. Like, and then this one can run that same game but at less frames or something. It'll be easier. What do you need? Okay.
Okay, I'll get something. We're about to finish this to wrap it up and get something.
I'm hungry too. All right. We don't have much left. We'll be done here soon.
you do with this info? The main thing right now isn't really about whether to pick the PS5 or the Steam machine. It's that if you're seriously considering it, there's not much time.
It's whether about picking Xbox or the Steam machine.
The Steam machine, 100%. I'm
Xbox.
sorry.
I'd choose
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
PS6
sorry.
over the Xbox. I don't want more subscriptions. That's the reason why I'm leaving PlayStation.
Yeah, that's
Left to
literally.
buy. This doesn't just apply to consoles, but also to laptops, smartphones, and other electronics, which are definitely going to see price hikes.
And I think Steam is gonna run better on phones as well. It's not even much of a thing right now, but I think it'll start running. You would be able to eventually play those Steam games on your phone,
That'll be insane.
which is another big go Steam route over PlayStation route. Or Xbox. Well, maybe not Xbox, since Xbox display anything anywhere on your fridge or whatever.
In the new year. And right now, while the big manufacturers haven't bumped up their prices yet, it's the perfect time to buy, especially with all the holiday discounts coming up. Analysts are predicting that prices will keep climbing until mid-2026, and some even say until 2027. It's important to note that this is just an increase, after which prices will stabilize at whatever level they hit. But when prices will start to drop, if they even do, is a big question. So far, no one's even hinting at trying to solve the issue with consumer memory, like what happened with the semiconductor shortage that led to new factories opening in Taiwan, probably because manufacturers are seeing a bubble in AI and aren't rushing to open new factories
So
for that.
beautiful and smooth.
The solution might be right under our noses because the AI bubble is a lot like what we saw during the dot-com crash, just on a different scale and in a different setting. But the reality is, even OpenAI, the folks behind the super popular chat, GPT,
the dot-com bubble and the AI bubble that he's talking about, apparently, I barely know about this, the details about this, but when the internet was first a thing and dot-com was new, people saw that as like, oh, .com, ooh, it's like seeing somebody in a suit. You just assume it's important. Right now we know .com doesn't really mean anything in it.
No.
But back then they thought it was like, oh, if you have a business that has .com, clearly you have money coming in your future. So we should throw money in your company to invest on its profit, right? So that's what they did back then. And then because rich people didn't truly understand, rich or older people usually, and they didn't really truly understand what that technology really was happening. So they just threw a lot of money and lost a lot of profit because .com doesn't guarantee that that company is going to make a lot of money. That's what they're comparing it to with this AI bubble, because a lot of companies are throwing AI to everything in their companies, and then investors are going, "Ooh, AI, that's the future. Throw money. Ooh, throw the money." So there's this consensus that the same thing will happen. A lot of companies will fail, burst that bubble of investment. Clearly, not all our companies. So yeah, some of them are
Is
going
that
to
a
become
PlayStation 3 remote?
PS4.
Oh, wow. I'm
Yeah,
confusing myself.
PS3 didn't have that.
Didn't have the touchpad.
Love that PS3.
Operating at a loss. And let's not even get started on the dozens of other companies that, with a high probability, won't survive the competition and will fold. One company's fall could trigger a domino effect, where investors start pulling their money from other companies
there's
and
gonna be
everything
like
begins to
3,
crumble.
4,
After
5
that, memory
powerful
prices will
ones, and then
finally
they'll
normalize.
eventually be
But there's
pretty
also a
close.
second, more optimistic scenario. What if there's no bubble collapse? When hardware manufacturers see that, they might start building new factories for retail. Either way, it's going to take time, and for now, we should brace ourselves for rising prices.
Yeah,
Yes. That's what I was like, where is this? Where are they? Where's these numbers? Where are these numbers?
brace yourself for
Not
rising
just saying
prices.
where
Now
you
we,
are
we
in
definitely
life.
have braced ourselves for rising prices. That was a very good video. If I can this one,
After I posted a
very
video,
good video. I'm surprised they didn't talk about the other stuff. I only talked about the Steam machine. Um, another selling point that this video didn't talk about was the ecosystem, because we got the Steam Deck, we'll have the Steam machine, we'll also have the Steam controller, which is it's not out yet, but guys, it's good. You're gonna want to buy it. I'll make a separate video on that. And then we'll have the VR, which we know ecosystems, especially healthy ecosystems that are not subscription paying constantly. That's a really big plus. The PS5 versus Steam machine, why this is not the end of consoles. Decent video, informative. By ConsoleDrop. I don't know if he's seen Console. It's a pretty
So
good
this
video.
was made 3 months ago, by the way.
It was. Me too.
No, I do like the Steam, and for them to do a Steam machine, and like I said, we'll buy one for now for yourself and see how that goes, because you usually are our tester, and then we'll all go from there. But
Well,
we do love. I like the console just because I'm always on it, but I would prefer Steam because just everything we can do on Steam. We've literally, again, is the reason why we went from console to even PC, is because there's just so many games that PlayStation's not letting us play, and
Yep.
those are our favorite games. I'm
Sons
like,
of the
"Damn."
Forest.
Pretty much. And then Little Nightmares too. Like those are like, I'm
No,
like,
that's
oh,
on PlayStation.
but it's the part 3. Oh yeah, right.
It's on
Right.
PlayStation.
Right. But
But there's no
yeah,
guarantee
but
that
that is
other
why
games
we
will be
moved.
like
Yeah,
that.
that's the thing. And our huge move was literally because of Sons of the
Sons of
Forest.
the Forest.
And I'm just like, we waited forever for that to come out, forever. And so, and I'm actually glad. I'm glad that we went through
the
it.
first and only game at the whole, like, the first game that we pre-ordered.
Yeah.
Every other game, I was under the, I'm never gonna pre-order games. They better come out. They better come out good, which is what everybody should have kept doing.
Yeah.
But I was so hyped for Sons of the Forest, and I loved the forest so much that I wanted to get my hands on it as soon as possible and experience it with her. And
We ended up playing The Forest too, even on it.
that one was on the PS4 and PS5. But so much so that I actually bought my first PC just to play Sons of the Forest. Right, and then we got you one as well just to play Sons of the Forest. So and then that's another point. It's we keep talking about these PlayStation exclusives, and that's because PlayStation's budget to make games is extremely high. But if we reverse it, there's so many Steam exclusives that only come out on Steam, um, which is Team PC, and yeah, a lot of them are not this big triple A companies making them. There's a lot of these indie games. But just today, my son's friend wanted to play Peak, and Peak is not on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So that's what you would consider a Steam exclusive, in my opinion. Um, a lot of other games like the Sons of the Forest. There's like a ton of like little indie games that just don't exist on console, nor could you hope for them to exist on
But that's what
console anytime soon.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I like the whole refund process. Like, hey, try it out and they'll give you the full refund back if you don't
And
like
I've
it.
never got a refund from PlayStation.
Yeah, but and if even if you do, they're just like, oh well, let's do this, or like it just takes so long.
It
And
is
I'm
a
like,
headache.
oh my
That's why
gosh.
I never got it, because I think I tried it once and I was annoyed by it, and
Yeah,
I just
I mean,
didn't do it
how long
anymore.
were we on the call with customer service just to get even in your account? That was
That-
so annoying.
That's because Steam actually wants to help you, and I think it's because they
Yeah.
understand the more they help you, the more you want to stay with them.
And I think it's 24/7 because we
And
told
Sony
them late.
don't want to help you, because their business idea, I think, is the more this is problematic for the customer to do, to get their refunds, to get their questions answered and stuff like that, the more they'll leave us alone
Yeah.
and don't keep bugging us for stuff. So team
Don't
team
push.
Steam, definitely team Steam. If there's anything that you like about gaming, there's a good chance that Steam is the reason why that exists. Um, Maybe if it weren't for Steam, there's a good chance that refunds in general wouldn't exist. Who
Yeah.
knows? Yeah, great video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.